Thanks, Ceann Corla. I want to raise a shocking example of where the state is completely failing to protect the well-being of people. Taoiseach, those living in the shadow of the Oireachtas alumina plant in County Limerick have suffered massively from the toxic pollution from that plant. People have gotten sick, animals have died, and livelihoods have been wiped out by the pollution. When an investigation was done into the health impacts of the plant in the locality, Oireachtas used the notorious lobbyist Frank Dunlop as their fixer. Later, 18 medical samples from resident Pat Gagan and his family mysteriously disappeared. When you were Minister for Health, you were on record as supporting an independent inquiry into the missing samples, yet you ended up doing a U-turn and blocking such an inquiry. Still to this day, you have not explained that U-turn. Mr Gagan has now written to you asking for that inquiry. Will you grant it? He's also asked for records of any contact between Mr Dunlop and yourself and your officials at the time about this investigation. Will you publish any?
In terms of Oireachtas and in terms of Pat Gagan, I do recall meeting Pat Gagan, I think it was the early 2000s, between 2000 and 2004 when I was Minister for Health. My understanding was the EPA had done a lot of research at the time in terms of the implications and implications of Oireachtas and the health assessments and so on, it hadn't been established by statutory authorities in respect of the impact on health, and I would have met Pat Gagan at the time in terms of both impact on animal health and impact on human health, I don't think it's fair to say an inquiry was blocked, but again, I don't have any recollection of meeting any individuals, bar Mr Gagan himself, and talking to officials in the department about that, but also that it was a matter that the EPA had been doing a lot of work in relation to, in terms of its roles and statutory duty in terms of monitoring industrial plants and to ensure that they meet safety and health and safety requirements and public health requirements. It still remains for baseline public health studies to be done in the context of plants like that. I mean, I can recall in other locations, baseline health studies have been done, have been continued in areas close to industry, monitoring pollution levels in cattle and in soil and so on. And I'm just speaking, because you just raised this, and I'm just speaking, my sense was that the evidential base wasn't one that was established around that, notwithstanding the very strong personal testimony of Mr Gagan himself, who has pursued this on a lengthy basis. In terms of Deputy Moynihan's points, I think you've made some very good points in terms of the wellbeing framework and will issues around community, spiritual health and so on be considered. It will, and I think our framework is based on the OECD model, but has been moulded to suit Irish context, based on consultation with stakeholders, experts, policymakers and the public. So there's about 11 dimensions which includes the framework. So subjective well-being, mental and physical health, knowledge and skills, income and wealth, housing and built area, environment, climate and biodiversity, safety and security, work and job quality, time use, community, social connections and cultural participation, which is kind of the areas that you had identified, I think, civic engagement and cultural expression. And the initial wellbeing framework will be refined to reflect recent consultation and further research in the second report, which will be published in the coming months. Okay. And there's also some indicators now from the dashboard chosen, what is and the CSO and so on, measuring life and progress in Ireland through about 34 indicators, a set of indicators. And again, our performance relative to the OECD's How's Life initiative, which is the basis for our framework. This set of indicators are based on areas that were highlighted as important for Ireland through the stake NESC.
Question 12.
Sorry, and then there was the wards of court. I'll come back to you, Deputy, on that. You've raised an issue. I'll talk to the Minister for Justice, I presume has responsibility over that area. Deputy Barry, again, in terms of the excise duties and the cuts we've made, I'm not in a position now to say what inflation will rise to. There's been various scenarios set around that, but it's going to rise because of the war.
Question
On top of
12, please.
It's 5.7 now in February.
Question 12.